Today on the Dolby Institute podcast, we're talking with 6 of the top cinematographers working today about their experiences shooting their very first feature films. Once again, our very good friend, Dolby Institute Fellowship winner Carlos López Estrada has brought together yet another all-star panel of Hollywood talent to discuss how they got their start in the industry. Joining Carlos are the cinematographers of projects including Elvis, The L Word, 300, No Man of God, The Creator, and Joker. This is another installment of our Satellite Sessions series, recorded as live webinars, which we're bringing to you in partnership with Anti-Gravity Academy and the Coalition of Asian Pacifics in Entertainment. This episode is also co-presented by Shot Deck. We are once again extremely proud to bring these conversations to you, filled with real-world advice as well as the origin stories behind each of these cinematographers, all with the aim to provide essential knowledge for navigating the film industry as an emerging artist yourself. Take it away, Carlos.
Hello. Nice to see you all. Thank you for continuing to show up to these. It's amazing to see so many of you. My name is Carlos López Estrada. I'm a filmmaker. I'm the founder of Anti-Gravity Academy. We are a production company established little less than a year ago with the main focus of supporting emerging filmmakers in film, in television, and beyond. In addition to hosting these monthly conversations, we're going to be launching a couple of other initiatives, like some mentorship opportunities and an incubator for first-time filmmakers. So if you don't already do so, please make sure to add us on Instagram at Anti-Gravity Academy and stay connected to learn about all of these cool initiatives that are coming up. Quickly about satellite sessions. If you've shown up to one before, you know this, but if this is your first time, just so you know what you've shown up to. These are free monthly conversations that we host with incredibly exciting figures from the film and the TV universe. We've had previous conversations featuring amazing groups of directors, producers, writers, agents, and managers. So if you have missed any of them, or if you want to see this one again, or if you want to share it with your friends, please let them know that they're going to become available to stream via the Dolby Institute. They are going to be posting them as both videos on their YouTube channel and podcasts. So please follow any of us to figure out how to get there. But all that being said, about our panel today, cinematography, as you know, goes way, way beyond figuring out how to shoot a scene or a movie beautifully. Cinematographers, together with the directors and with the writers of a film, are also the authors of the story. They are responsible for every image, for every frame, every message that needs to be communicated in order to communicate the story. And we're very lucky to have today 6 incredible cinematographers talking about the beginning of their journeys and how their early projects help shape their filmmaking voice. So please join me in welcoming Mandy Walker. She is an Australian-born, Oscar and BAFTA-nominated cinematographer. She has lensed films such as Elvis, Mulan, Hidden Figures, and Australia. In 2022, she was named the ACS Cinematographer of the Year and has been inducted to the ACS Hall of Fame. She is currently in production of Disney's Snow White, set to come out in 2024. Welcome, Mandy. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Next, we have Larry Fong. He is a Los Angeles-based cinematographer, graduate of the Art Center College of Design. He got his start shooting music videos, including MTV Music Video of the Year, 1991, REM's Losing My Religion. I didn't know you shot that, Larry. It's one of the most iconic videos of all time. His first studio film, 300, began his long list of collaborations with director Zack Snyder. His work includes Batman vs. Superman, Kong Skull Island, the ASC Award-nominated pilot of Lost, The Tomorrow War, and an upcoming A24 film called Death of a Unicorn. Larry, thank you for coming here.
Glad to be here.
Lawrence, also Larry Sher, Oscar-nominated DP. Sorry, I combined Larry and Lawrence, and I said Laurie. Larry Sher, an Oscar-nominated DP. He's known for his work on Joker, the Hangover trilogy, Garden State, Godzilla, King of Monsters, and many, many more. Additionally to being a cinematographer, he's the founder of shotdeck.com, which is the world's largest high-definition image database, which provides reference, inspiration, and education for filmmakers worldwide. They are also co-hosting our panel today. So, Larry, thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Next, we have Oren Sofer. He's an Israeli-born cinematographer. His most recent film, The Creator, which was shot alongside fellow cinematographer Greg Fraser. His prior feature films have premiered at TIFF and Tribeca film festivals, and he has shot award-winning shorts and hundreds of commercials and music videos for Nike, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, HBO, Universal Studios, many more. Oren, thank you.
Thanks so much, Carlos. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Sandra Valde-Hansen, a graduate from the American Film Institute. She was named one of Variety's 2019 Artisan Elite Up Next. She works across TV, documentary, feature films with credits such as the L Word, Generation Q, Plan B, Burn Motherfucker Burn. That's such a fun title to say out loud. XO, Kitty, and The Summer I Turned Pretty. Originally from a Filipino family in Miami, Florida, her work concentrates on promoting diversity both in front and behind the camera. Sandra, hello. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Carlos. I'm so excited to be here, guys. Hello.
And last but not least, we have Karina Silva. She is a former Olympic level diver, which is amazing, turned into a cinematographer. Her credits include Amber Seeley's No Man of God, Beauty Mark, and Elbows Deep. Her upcoming film with director Peter Hutchings, Which Brings Me to You, finished filming earlier this year. She has a very unique background as a world-class athlete, and that provides a very fresh perspective to all the things she does. And we're excited to ask you about it too. Karina, welcome.
Thank you, Carlos. Hi, everybody.
Thank you all for joining. We're so lucky to have you all. So, okay, thank you all again. To start things off, I'd love if we could go around, and if you can tell us a little bit, some of you may have had this moment recently, some of you may have had it not so recently, but if you can share with us who is the person responsible for giving you your first movie opportunity, and just whatever you think is good for us to know about that moment, what the conversation was like, what the circumstance, how the circumstance came to be. But okay, I am just going to go in order of my Zoom screen, if that's okay. Larry, Larry Sher, I see you smiling, so I'm going to start with you.
I gave myself my first feature opportunity because I made a film right out of college. I didn't go to film school. I was an economics major, but I got into movies late in college, undergraduate. And so me and a fellow friend of mine from school who graduated with me, he's like, let's go make a movie. And so that was basically my film school. So we raised the money, we wrote the script together, he directed it and starred in it, I shot it. It was the whole film school in one lump sum, and it was amazing. And then after that, so that was amazing, and it was really worthwhile, and I would recommend it to anyone. And we raised the money, it was about 50 grand, and then we had to raise another like 100 the next year to finish it. So all in, it was about 150 grand from like friends, families, dentists, doctors, wow. And like $1,000 sort of chunks. You could get a piece of the movie. We did pay them back. We sold the movie and made a little bit of money for them.
Is it still? And
I just was talking to Christian, who I work with at Shottick, and I've been trying. I need to remaster it because it basically exists on like a VHS or like a 1-inch. Master. And so this was 1992, so it's a long time ago. But the real person was, I did a short film with a guy, and this is where you don't really know where it's going to come from. This was maybe 3 years later, because I went back to assisting, and that didn't lead to really anything. And I met the AD on that film. His girlfriend's dad was a film executive who got a chance to make his first movie. You know, he was in his 60s, and he had been a film executive on big movies. And he, for no real reason, it's not like I had a bunch of experience, he gave me an opportunity to shoot like a $5 million movie in Fabens, Texas, which was like a little noirish bank robbery movie called On the Border. And it taught me everything. It taught me how to be a professional. I was terrified. I was literally like, I'm way in over my head here. And I don't know why he hired me, but I will always be grateful to him. His name's Bob Mizrowski. He's in large part responsible for me sort of having a career.
I'm going to ask you a couple of more specific questions about that experience. But for now, let me pass it over to Mandy. You're next on my screen.
So I also did not go to film school, and I grew up in Australia, and I started straight out of high school as a PA and a runner on a feature film. And I'm one of those people that knew I wanted to be a cinematographer from when I was about 14. So I was on a trajectory to get there. And I was like, when I was on that movie, I would go up to the camera department and hang out and say, this is what I really want to do, if anybody could help me. And a couple of them did, and I got jobs on a couple of documentaries, and I became a loader on feature films, and then I was a first AC. And one of the cinematographers I'd been working with, the guy called Ray Argall, was like an indie cinematographer and building his own lights out of fluorescent tubes and stuff like that. And I worked with him for quite a few years, assisting him. And then he got me to shoot some music videos that he was directing. And then he got the opportunity to direct a feature film called Return Home. And I was 25, and he said to me, Mandy, I want you to shoot it. And I was, again, as Larry said, terrified. And he said, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to show you what the relationship is between a director and a DP. So that's the most important thing I learned from him. But he also said, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I want this to be your job as a cinematographer. And so the lighting, we're going to talk about it. We're going to have it like, I'm not a cinematographer. We're going to have a situation where you're going to make those decisions, and we're going to get crew around you that can support you, which I did. I had people around me that were experienced, and I gleaned a lot of information from them. But then it sort of kept going from there. And after that, I was, struggled for a few years, but I stopped assisting, and it just went on from there. And then I got a couple of other jobs, and it just kept going. Then I left Australia when I was after about 12 films or something that I'd done, and then I've been living in the United States for 20 years. So that first job was the one that got me my big break, and someone who trusted me.
And you've been here. You're in the States right now, right?
No, I'm in Australia right
You're
now
back.
visiting family because there's a strike on, and so I took this opportunity. But I do live in LA. Yeah,
makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. Karina, you're here next on my screen.
For me, I actually I had met the director of my first film on a short film that I was shooting. He was the AD. He was helping out a mutual friend. And I had heard he was shooting a feature. And I was like, oh, man, I'd love to shoot a feature. And he already had a DP, so I couldn't really do much. But 2-3 months later, all the crew had somehow, dropped out. And suddenly there was an opening. So I told him, look, I'll do it for free. And I'll donate all the lights and the gear and the cameras and everything. And he was like, all right, you got the job. And I was operating on a movie at the time, and I didn't have a lot of prep time face-to-face with him. So whenever my camera wasn't playing, I was in the camera truck FaceTiming with him, going through the script and really trying to like plan the movie out.
And what was the name of that feature?
That was called Beauty Mark. We made it in 12 days for $50,000, including post and everything. So amazing. It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. Oren, I'll come over to you.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Yeah. So my first feature as a DP, I was still in film school. It was the summer between junior and senior year. That's third and fourth year for any listeners who are not American and don't use our silly words for describing school years. And this was actually 10 years ago this year. So it was 2013. I had shot the directors. I mean, the director was a friend. We were all friends. We had a good friend group. This was at NYU, New York University, Tisch Film School in New York City. And I had shot a bunch of friends' third year films. And one of them was this woman, Marley Rodriguez, who's still a good friend of mine to this day. And in an act of pure arrogance, I think we all sort of agreed, like, hey, instead of making a senior year film, a short, let's make a feature this summer in between third year and fourth year. I think the budget was about $100,000. It was raised among dentists and real estate agents, just like Larry mentioned. It's a pretty typical fundraising scheme for indie films. Everybody worked on it for free. I mean, we were all students. Everybody was a film student. And yeah, we shot for 20 days in upstate New York. And it was, none of us knew what we were doing. None of us had been on a feature before. None of us had spent 20 plus days like shooting the same project. And we just, I don't know, ran into the wall, and burst our head through like the Kool-Aid man. Like, we're gonna do this. And we did it. I can't speak to its quality now, 10 years on. I haven't seen it in a while. But
what's the name of the film, and is it available?
It's called Little Miss Perfect. I am not sure if it's available. It probably shouldn't be, but maybe it is somewhere. But yeah, so that was the first one, and then still been doing it ever since. Yeah.
Amazing. Sandra, you're next here, and then we'll end with Larry.
Yeah, so like a few of us, it got started by a short film. I was doing a short film, and the producer of that short film, we hit it off, and she happened to be the line producer for an indie film. She reached out to me and she says, "Have you ever heard of the director Greg Araki?" And so I actually had heard of Greg Araki. This was before the internet. I was reading Movie Maker magazine and Indie Filmmaker magazine, and Greg was all over it. Greg is like one of the forefront directors of queer cinema in the early 90s, and his movies has been going to Sundance since like 1987. And so when she said, he's looking for a DP, would you want to put your name in the hat? And my thinking was like, oh my God, please put my name in the hat. There is no way he's going to hire me, but I just want to meet him, because, Greg's movies are genre bending and crazy and very stylistic. And I was, this kind of goody Catholic school girl whose training is in documentary. There's no way that this guy is going to hire me. But I was like, I'm going to go to this interview and we'll see what happens. And lo and behold, I go to this interview, and Greg is not at all what I expected him to be. I expected him to be, a little bit, weird and, dressed kind of funky. But no, he was totally normal. We met on a Starbucks in Cahuenga. And I guess, we hit it off, and he hired me. And Greg and I have been working ever since then. That movie that he hired me for is called Kaboom. It is available on, I think, on any of the Amazon or wherever you can stream it. It is available. And I owe a lot to Pavlina and Greg. And Greg actually gave me my first TV show too. So he started my feature film, kind of journey, and then he helped me get into television. So I owe a lot to Greg Rocky.
Thank you, Greg. Larry,
Yeah.
we'll end this round with you.
I have to credit Zack Snyder for my first feature, but that's also going back to film school, because we were in film school together and we were good friends then, and I shot a lot of his projects way back when. So we were friends through school and started to work together after school, and then eventually he got the movie 300 basically, and he pitched it to me, and yeah.
What a crazy first film to get.
Yeah, that's really it's a crazy first film. Yeah, actually he gave me the script and I just kind of read it overnight, and I just thought, this is just like massacring, this bloody gruesome movie. I'm not sure I want to do a movie like this, And he calmed me down and said, no, it's like, I know it reads like a bloody violent thing, and it is violent, but it's really just about the look of the film. And I said, really? Oh, that's awesome. Because I wanted, there's been enough of these kind of warrior films. Recently there had been Alexander and what they call them, sword and sandals type movies.
Yeah.
But he said, if we could do something like Alexander and The Matrix together, then that's what we should try to do. The old, let's do something no one's done before thing, like everyone says. But
so cool. I'll reverse the order for y'all, and if you can think of one thing in that first feature experience that you realized that you like had no idea about, like something where you were just like, oh shit, like big learning lesson or big like I have no idea what I'm doing moment. Does anything come to mind? If you had it all figured out, that's fair.
I'll jump in.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I know it's not reverse order, but
no, it's fine. No,
well,
please feel free to make this fluid thing.
I don't think, because I was also producing this film, this Captain Jack film that we made, kind of like Oren was saying, basically let's just go make a movie, and it felt like at least you could sell a feature film as opposed to a short film. And then once, hardest part is shooting one day, and you might as well just keep going for twice the amount and get a whole movie out of it. But I had basically been working as a loader in a second AC and practicing the wheels in anticipation of going out to Ohio to go make this movie with my friend. But I had rented the cameras. The SR3 had just come out. We were one of the first people to get an SR3. We drove, and I forgot that we needed power. And so then I hired a couple of electricians, and we were like, we don't have a generator. So that was an oversight
that's a good one to that's a good one to forget.
The thing that I discovered on my first feature film was that because I'd just been doing, shooting music videos and short films, and then all of a sudden I was it wasn't a big movie, but the thing that I realized on that is that my job was not just about shooting the images. It was about running a crew and the politics of being a head of department. And, I always say this to people, if you're running behind and, there's a time problem, the producer will come out and it'll be the DP, the first AD and the director. So that's what I learned on that, is that as well as having the responsibility of lighting and camera and storytelling with the director, that I was also about running my crew and about that collaboration between the different departments and how you have to use your pre-production properly to get that very coherent by the time you shoot.
And quick follow-up, how many movies do you think it took you to feel like you had a good handle on that, where you were like, okay, I can run a crew and do the politics and run smooth ship?
I think it happened pretty quickly, because I would have similar people on each of my projects going forward. My crew, I tried to hire the same people, but also, we're always learning things. And then, it's the jump to a bigger film, and then it's a jump to a film with VFX. So there's always challenges and learning as you go along. So I feel like I'm never not learning as as I keep doing one film to the other. But I reckon after 2 or 3 movies, I felt very comfortable in that position.
Anyone else would like to share a big learning lesson or
yeah, I can hop in, Carlos. I think the biggest thing for me going from doing a bunch of student shorts, which we would shoot over the weekends at film school because you had classes during the week. So you had 2 or 3 days to shoot a short. And when we did this feature over the summer, that was the first time, like I had mentioned before, that I had done anything longer than a 3-day shoot. So it was the first time I did, I think we shot for 19 or 20 days. And just learning the pattern of that, the stamina of that was like a huge shock to the system. Like, oh, we're doing like 10 shorts back to back because, you know, the feature has a bunch of different looks and different locations. So each one is almost like a little short. Like we're going to do a short at this house, and then we're going to do a short at this school, and we're going to do a short here. And just keeping up the stamina and getting enough sleep and like figuring out, even just scouting a location and planning, and then knowing like, oh, we're going to come back there in a month, you know, and we still need to like keep those ideas fresh and remember what we talked about. And that was definitely the biggest thing I remember taking away from that. And after that, I did a string of other indies that were all around 20-day shoots. But the creator, the film that I have out now, was 80 days. So that was like a big jump up in terms of shoot days. And then, like Mandy was saying, like that was now another huge learning curve of like, okay, I just quadrupled the length of stamina and shoot that I did prior to this. So like everything is learning. And then, you know, there's DPs on this panel that have shot TV, and I haven't shot TV, and that scares me, like that kind of length of schedule. So I think everything is always just learning how to adapt to those new circumstances and physically, mentally, and everything.
Yeah, I remember at the end of the second week of my first feature, I just got home and I sat on the bed, and my partner at the time, after like 10 minutes, just like stood in front of me. It was just like, hey, are you okay? Like, you haven't moved. It looks like you're not breathing. You're just like staring into a wall. Is everything okay? And I think it's just like my system completely overwhelmed, like emotionally and physically. I think it's hard to overstate how big of a jump it is to all of a sudden shoot for weeks and weeks at a time. Anyone else would like to chime in on their Sandra?
I mean, for me, working with Greg, so Greg is an auteur director, and a lot of the things I did prior, I would collaborate with the director. We would talk about shots. Greg would storyboard everything. And when I say storyboard, it wasn't like the fancy storyboards. They were literally like drawings on the margins of the script. And we called them Gregolithics because nobody could understand them, but I understood them, and he never strayed from them. And that was like a first thing for me. I actually found it extremely freeing because he let me concentrate on lighting. I knew exactly what he was looking for. So I could set up the shot. He could go talk to the actors. It was actually quite efficient. And it really, some of my friends were like, wasn't that like creatively so, not creative for you? And I said, no, because I was able to really kind of concentrate on lighting. And now that Greg and I have worked together I know what he likes, he knows what I like. I can now say, hey, Greg, what if we try this, or what if we try that? And now sometimes he listens to me. But it was definitely an interesting kind of, I don't want to say learning curve, but it was a different way of working, which is just what I love about working with directors in film and in television. I get to learn about so many ways different directors, work. And then I say, oh, I really like how that person works. And then I kind of pick and choose and try to create my like perfect process. So that was my kind of experience.
Craft wise, the first few films I felt good about, since I've been working with Zach so long. We kind of, are friends. But the thing about stamina, because I was shooting commercials for maybe 10 years, The commercials last 2, 3, 4 days if you're lucky. And then, like you guys said, that the length of a movie that's many months, freaks you out. And it's like, I think 300 was 60 days or something. That was, the concept. Here's the thing that you never learned in commercial: the concept of Fratter days. Every week was, like, we're starting later and later. Like, how does that work? Then you're starting at 5 p.m. on Friday. Then Monday it's back to 7 a.m. or whatever. And then every week was like that. And that was kind of my biggest memory and takeaway from that was, is this illegal?
Hey, Larry, and Mandy was talking about sort of like the jump into movies that are heavy VFX, but your first movie was probably the heaviest possible VFX movie that you could ever do. Did you feel like you had a good handle of it? I know you've been doing commercials and music videos, but still.
Yeah, right. Every single shot was a VFX shot in that movie. They weren't all necessarily composites or blue screens, but everything was affected so heavily. That look was all VFX, not just the DI. But no, I've done a lot of VFX in the past, and I've always loved VFX. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, I thought I'd be in VFX somehow. Well, then it wasn't VFX; it was special effects. But so I love the process. So no, that part was actually pretty easy. Cool. What was really cool was that when we used blue screen, not green screen for. Wait, yeah. And the thing of this wasn't really a question, but the way I was making the VFX work was every shot I would take from my DSLR, put it into the computer, and have like a proxy of the kind of the look and the background that was going to be for that shot or that scene, and then make the composite to see if like it was all working. And Zach has the movie in his head so well that for any given scene, we could say, "Where's the sun in the shot?" And that would be consistent with, it wasn't, sometimes people think VFX shots, you just do whatever and VFX fixes it later. And that's how it looks good. They light it later. Sometimes people say that. But no, the VFX, it's always fun for me.
Good to know. And Karina, you had your first.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna like say what everybody else was kind of saying, the stamina, because I came from a big budget operating background. So I was used to, using really heavy cameras, but I had a grip right next to me, getting ready to like pop it off. There was a lot of time in between setups, and I worked a lot with Peter Berg. At that time, I had done 4 features with Pete, and those are all like, big zooms, handheld, lots of action. And the movie that we made, Beauty Mark, was handheld, but only because we didn't have a dolly or a tripod or anything else. So it just had to be that. And I didn't have any crew to help me. I had a freshman at NYU that was my gaffer, and I had 2 lights. And Keslo had donated the original Alexa. I don't know if you remember, but it was like a monster. And we had 2 of them because they broke all the time, and obviously ours broke as well. Yeah. But I remember it feeling like, it was like a training session. It was 12 days of intense training. There was no union, obviously. 16, 18-hour days. There was nothing like a 12-hour day on our shoot. And obviously not legal, but it did feel like I had to stretch every morning, because I was just carrying that camera around all day. And it took me back to when I was a diver. Having to push through exhaustion and perform, essentially, and mentally perform as well, which is difficult.
A follow-up for whoever wants to answer. Don't feel like we have to go around it, just if you have a story to share. But in terms, because you've talked a lot about the practical matters of like the schedule and VFX and the physicality of it, but in terms of storytelling, did any of you feel like there was a big learning curve, or like a moment where like maybe shooting coverage or how to interpret a scene, or was there anything storytelling driven that was like a big aha moment in your first couple of features? You can also say no.
I can jump in, because I know a couple of people have asked in the chat about us finding our style.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to comment on that because for me, what I learned also from working with other DPs is that every film is different. And so it's discovering the style of that story and the style of the story that the director wants to tell and how you get into their head. And like Sandra was saying, all directors are really different, and we have to be chameleons in a way where in the first couple of weeks of prep, you've got to work out how the director wants to work with you. Like, are they going to storyboard everything? Are they going to expect you to storyboard, or they hate storyboards and you're going to just have to work on the fly when you get to a set? So I think that's why pre-production is so important, because that's where you work out the style of the photography. It's going to work with the story, but also the budget and the schedule and the people that you're collaborating with. And so in that sense, I think that is a big part of our job that I learned pretty quickly too, is that I can't do what I did on the last movie because that's a different film, and so I would like to say that I don't have a particular style of my photography, in that every movie is different, and I like that about my job.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of feel the same way, and one thing that I did learn early on was to trust my gut. I really, when I was younger, I wanted to do what I thought the director wanted me to do, whether it be voicing my opinions or, giving my ideas. But when I learned that what I feel and what I think is appropriate for the moment, that's when I kind of unleashed this freedom that I had, whether it be in operating or, speaking up, or just kind of designing the look of the film. It was always, maybe it wasn't right, but at least that inspired something else, and it became like a conversation that you could build on, versus holding back and kind of censoring yourself a little bit, So that's something that I learned in one of my earlier days in first feature.
I have something, Carlos, I can jump in on. I just saw a question from Ezra about elaborate on developing the style in pre-production, and Mandy was just talking about pre-pro as well.
Yeah,
and it did remind me of actually something on that first feature, which is in pre-production on that film, working with Marley, the director. It was the first time that I had done a project where we actually really sat down and created an evolving look for the project that was based on the story. So prior shorts and stuff that I had done, I guess, I don't know, we never really thought about them in that way. Like, you have a short, it's 10 pages, maybe 12. There's a few scenes, there's a certain visual look and approach to that you figure out and you shot list it and go do it. But on a feature, it was the first time that we actually sat and were like, all right, how can the visual language evolve? And how does that support the storytelling as the characters like evolve and grow and change throughout the film? And I mean, in hindsight, like, I think we probably were pretty heavy-handed with it. Like, we were like, the movie's going to start with warm colors and then it's going to go cold when things get dark, and then it's going to go back to warm again. And like, it's a kind of on the nose evolution. And we changed the visual style. Like, we went from sticks to handheld and then back to sticks and that kind of thing. Like, but it was interesting and cool to think about that for the first time and track it. And then obviously you shoot out of order. So it becomes the mental puzzle of like, all right, what scene are we shooting now? Is it page 60 or is it page 10? Because the visual style and the visual approach that we've created for the film has to be consistent so that when it's edited together, the story flows and the visuals support that story. So yeah, that was a really interesting learning experience on that film that I've definitely taken and maybe mellowed a little bit over time and gotten a little more subtle with it. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting part of that experience.
Now that you have all had experience on narrative filmmaking, when you get to work with other filmmakers, directors, or beyond who are just starting their journeys, how do you normally approach that collaboration? Like, when you have a director who's just starting and going through this curve that you went through before, is there anything specific that you do to try to make sure that that collaboration is successful and that you're able to communicate well and, start on a job effectively?
A lot of my indie feature kind of journey has always been with first time directors. And I absolutely loved it because a lot of times first time directors come with like fresh ideas and are really excited about the project. And ultimately, I truly believe that the director and the DP can really set the tone for a set. And if you have a director who's really excited, then I get really excited, and then the whole crew gets really excited. I mean, we really do set the tone. But some of the things, some of the directors have even said this to me, like I start by asking, like, how do you work? What is your process? I've met with some directors who are always like, because I don't really feel that a director needs to come to me and say, Sandra, this needs to be shot on a 24 millimeter lens, with this framing. That's cool if a director can do that, because I can geek out with directors about cameras and all of that. However, there are a lot of directors who don't necessarily know the technical words. And my feeling is you don't have to. You don't. That's what we're here for. Us as cinematographers, we're here to basically take your vision and translate it into the technical. So if you could provide anything to me, just if you know exactly what you want, then communicate it to me, whether it's words, sometimes it's a piece of music, sometimes it's like a piece of art or a reference from another movie. Anything like that is enough for me. Like if you even tell me about feeling, like, Sandra, this scene is about loneliness. And then we talk about, okay, let's talk about how do we visualize loneliness? And that leads into creating that visual language that Oren is talking about. Like all you have to do is know what you want, and you can communicate it any way that you like, because we're here to translate it. And we'll continue asking questions because, again, like Mandy said earlier, we want to get inside directors' heads and create what they are envisioning.
Oh, that's beautiful. Larry, you had a thought there too.
I mean, Sandra kind of said it all. I mean, like it was basically a lot of the overlap. It's basically they don't need to know anything about cinematography to be a good director. Often they're a writer, which helps. They've already written a lot that has expressed their vision. But it's basically that. It's like I try to sit down and first find out how much time they have. Sometimes directors are hard to get time with, right? So, but let's just say the best case scenario, you say, let's go through the script, and it is a lot of questions. It's just sometimes it's like, well, how did this come up? Why'd you write this scene? What does this scene mean in the movie? And often I'll come up with questions. Why is this scene? What's the objective of this scene? What's like the event that this scene is? It might be emotions, it might be events, it might be like what, and then that can sort of, then you go, okay. And if they are interested, and often they are, it's like, okay, well then this is how I would translate that or help you translate that into visual language. And then they get excited because now they're learning something new that maybe they intuitively have sensed from watching enough movies, but now it's like, oh, I get it. What is the difference between a long lens and a wide lens, and emotionally how it affects the audience, and handheld versus sticks, and all the camera movement versus nothing. And then it's just, if we could get all the way through the script, my objective is it's going to get hectic. You're going to need to focus 90% of your energy on the actors, all things being equal. And I want, no matter what, at the end of this process, for you to feel like I can take as much of the burden as possible off your shoulders so you can concentrate on all the other things, but this will still feel 100% like your vision. It's not like I've taken over your vision. I've just now taken all the things that we've talked about, things that you have expressed in whatever way you can express them, and then use the skill as a cinematographer to translate them into visual language. But it's still going to be your movie. I did Garden State. I sat with Zach Braff for 6 hours. That was it. That was our entire prep. 6 hours.
Crazy.
Two page turns. And then he's like, I got this kid who's in art school. He can write, he can draw storyboards if you want to do storyboards. I don't even like storyboards, but I was like, I don't know. I got time. I'm here for a couple more weeks of prep. And I storyboarded the whole movie. And in a way, it was like, it was easy because it was all my storyboards and we just executed them. But it was still very much Zach's vision. I never felt like it was still his movie because he had spit out whatever was important. And the rest was like, I could then infer from the conversation.
Our audience today and the people who are going to be watching this streaming later is mostly comprised of emerging filmmakers. I imagine many of them today are emerging cinematographers. Not so much like advice for how to get your first projects that is a little bit more practical, but in terms of, do you have any advice for how an emerging cinematographer can work on starting to develop their voice and become a little bit more ready for narrative work, for making the jump between, you know, shorts and features or commercials and music videos to features, but anything that comes to mind for tackling feature storytelling?
Yeah, I think I can jump in here because this is something that comes up a lot when I'm talking to younger filmmakers. And to me, there's one really important thing that everybody I think should do, and I would say needs to do in order to build that baseline. And it's just watch movies and study film. And because directors speak film language, like every time you work with a director, they're going to pull out references and they're going to say, oh, like that shot in this movie or this and this and this, because directors pretty much all watch a ton of movies and are inspired by movies and are influenced by that in their own storytelling and their own writing and their own directing. And so if you as a cinematographer are not able to like talk that same language with them in the narrative world and talk about the language of storytelling and visual storytelling and film language and film history, it can be hard to connect with directors on that level because you're going to miss like a big part of the conversation. And so I think that's the best way, or at least one thing that everybody can do that doesn't cost anything, you know, besides the rental cost on a streaming service or your local video store, which is what I did, or, you know, a Shot Deck subscription. But I think that's like a really important thing. And the weird thing is I bump into a lot of people who don't watch movies, like specifically DPs, who are like, I don't have time, this and this, and I you know, I can't make time for it. And I think it is worth making time for that, especially when you're starting out, because you need to build that foundation of film language, or else you're gonna have a hard time understanding narrative storytelling, understanding beats, understanding even just communicating with the director. So yeah, that's a big thing, I would say.
I'll just jump on that. Only there's a reason Shot Deck literally came to be was because of that. Like, it was something I could do when I wasn't working, which was most of the time. And I was like, I could just break down a movie and break it down literally to understand the filmmaking. So I could see the coverage. I could see the pieces that put together this. Oh, how are they doing training day? I'll break down every single driving shot so I can understand the choices. And it's not until you break it down that you're like, oh, I see, every single one's different. This one's from outside through the glass. This one's from inside back seat. Oh, and why? Why are they making the choices there? What's going on in the scene at this point? And it's amazing. It's free, first of all, and you can do it on your own, and you can do it any day. So it's like, it's your own film education that's ongoing by watching movies and understanding how they're made. And you'll be amazed when you start to like dissect them. You'll notice editing, you'll notice sound design, you'll notice all these choices that the director and the rest of the filmmakers have made. And you could do it today, you can do it every day of the week. And you don't need permission or money to do it outside of like a subscription to Netflix or wherever.
Can I just say one other thing too?
Please.
Is to listen to these panels and listen to people like us that have had experience, but also there's American Cinematographer magazine and they have interviews online too, and listen about other cinematographers talking about how they achieve certain things and why, I think is also really good education.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for doing this because I know that it's invaluable to all the people who are watching. Okay, I have some quick individual questions. Don't want to rush any of you, but I'll encourage you to just keep it a little brief so that we can get through all of these and then the audience questions. But I'll just go in this order. Mandy, you kind of described this about yourself, but you said you like to think of your style as being, not necessarily one particular style, and being able to adapt yourself to the project and the filmmaker that you're working with. Is there anything that when you first get a script, you first get a job, you're like, nice to meet you, here's the movie that we're making. What's like the first thing that you do to begin to find that heart of the movie?
I think it's kind of what we'd been saying earlier, is when I first read a script, I really try and just read it as a story and not start thinking of the cinematography yet until I've spoken to the director. And then, like Larry was saying, one of the first things I try and do is have time with them to go through and talk about story, and then talk about how they want to work with me and how they feel comfortable and what they need from me. Do they need me to do storyboards? Do they need me to go out and find movies that are relevant to this genre or whatever? And then I think it's really also important that we haven't talked about is to collaborate with the other departments. And I try and do that super early, is that once the director and I have spoken, whether we do it with the director in a group, but you have to be, for the visual language to work, you all have to be on the same page, which is the art department, the costume, the makeup, the VFX, the special effects. And that is a really important thing that I try and do very early, so that if we're testing colors or an idea, that I have a lighting idea that it's going to work with what the textures and the elements that are going to be in the frame and the cut, and just all that stuff and more. And I'm sure everybody's in this same situation. I have to check in with VFX super early because they are on the film before me, same as a production designer. So as soon as I can start having conversations with them, the better, because otherwise things can go off and previews can be done without you being involved. And I think that it's really important that collaboration starts, the conversation starts really early.
That's great. Great advice. Karina, I'll go next over to you. You talked about being a camera op, and I know you opt in, huge TV shows, Mandalorian movies, tons of movies, etc. What do you think are some pros and cons of starting your career as a DP, crewing in positions, G&E or camera?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was kind of a means to an end. When I graduated from UCLA, I wanted to be a DP, similar to Mandy. I knew I wanted to be a DP when I was 14 years old. I saw a movie that changed my life, and I knew that was my career. So once I graduated, I shot anything and everything that I could. But at the same time, I was PAing on sets. So kind of like Oren was saying, the weekends were for filming, right? And then during the week, I was a PA or I was a utility, and I kind of worked my way up to camera operator. But even when I was operating, I was still shooting. The projects that I was shooting got progressively better. Being on set, I think, is the best education you can have, because as an operator, you're there with the DP talking about blocking, talking about, where the actor should go, where the lighting is, and why it's there, why the camera moves, versus it not moving at all, or one camera is doing one thing and the other camera has to do another thing. So it's like it's learning to shoot with multiple cameras or a single camera and knowing when to do what. You're also working with the grips very closely. So you learn about the grip department. You're working with the gaffer as well. You get so much exposure. To me, that's how I learned the most. I went to film school. I didn't know anything. I graduated and I was like, oh God, what did I learn? Apart from like what an f-stop was. And being on set really taught me a lot, and working with DPs. I almost kind of miss working with other DPs because, once you start shooting consistently, you really it's kind of just and I remember, working with Tobias Schliessler a lot, and it was really cool to see, the way his thought process worked, and, what I would do differently. I would do that all the time. Like, I would be like, oh yeah, no, I would never do that. Or that's a little too bright, or no, this is a little too this, and I would like do like mental notes in my head, just as like putting it in my Rolodex as like, this is what I could do one day, maybe.
Amazing.
But what was the movie that you
When?
saw at 14?
Oh, it was called The Constant Gardener. And the power of that message, I didn't realize the power of film until I saw that movie, and how they were testing pharmaceuticals in Africa on these poor people. I was just blown away at the time, and I was like, wow, that's what I want to do.
It's amazing.
That movie's a masterpiece. I love that movie.
Larry Fong. I remember a long time ago we got to work on a commercial together, and you kept telling me that you've been working on these big movies and you really wanted to make an indie. And it seems like, unless I'm wrong, that you were making these big movies for a little while, but it seems like recently you've gotten a chance to do some slightly more intimate movies. And you shot this, I don't know how big your A24 movie Death of a Unicorn was, but it seems like you got a little bit of a chance to step back into the indie world. Is there anything that you learned in that experience? Was it fun? Was it challenging? Was it all of the above?
Grass is always greener, right? So I wonder if I was just kind of felt like I was lost in the shuffle of these big movies. I missed, being more hands-on. But it's not always the case with a big movie. But yes, doing an A24 film was awesome and eye-opening, and the budget was about a tenth of what I'm used to. But it was fantastic. You got everything I wanted out of it that I hoped to get, which was not getting lost in the shuffle, being very involved, from doing things like drawing the storyboards to doing the shot listing, every day after prep, after everyone's gone home, go to the stage with the director and get out the iPhone and get out Artemis and plan the shots, visually, making little movies and seeing if it all works, and being that close to the director. Because let's be honest, like sometimes when you do a big movie, like there's 3 storyboard artists, right? And then you get on the movie, and then there's walls of storyboards, and said, look, that's what you're gonna do. And you're like, what, do I get a say in any of this? Right? Sometimes that happens. I may be exaggerating, but I'm sure all you guys have experienced that, where it's like, wow, do I get to choose any of the angles or the lenses or the shots? So I got to do a lot of that, and it was like the old days. And the director, even though he was first-time director, like you're talking about, he was so prepared, had all the references, was willing to put the time and effort, and that's saying a lot. I might be saying things that are obvious to those of you that do indies, but when you do a big movie, sometimes you do get lost in the shuffle as far as not choosing the shots, not choosing a lot of things, and also not spending a lot of time with the director. I found it with big movies, they're busy with the studio, with the big name actors, and I did a movie where the director hardly wanted to talk to me at all, and so. To do a movie where the director's calling me constantly and saying, do you want to stay late? Do you want to talk on the weekend? A couple years before, I would have thought, wait, do I get paid for that? Like, what? This is my time. It's like, it was the best thing ever. I couldn't think of a better way, to spend my spare time on the weekends, so that we could make this film, which like a labor of love, super cool. I'm very excited for it.
Oh, can't wait to see it. Oren, over to you. Is there anything that you would want to share just in terms of how you collaborated with Greg Fraser on The Creator?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I won't get into the boring details, because there's you can find that info somewhere else. But what I will say about it is that I wish we did that more. I wish DPs could collaborate with each other more, because it was such a beautiful thing. Like, it was DPing can be a very lonely job. Like, we're surrounded by crew, and obviously we have close relationships with our department heads and with our director, and with other department heads or at the very least, close working relationships. But the job of the DP can sometimes be very solo, like it can be very isolating. Like there's a lot that kind of rests on your shoulders, and a lot of responsibilities that you, and I'm not just talking about division of physical labor. It's mental. I mean, it's kind of similar to the job of the director. It can be very lonely, and you have to be confident and at one with your choices and your decisions, and having another person just to like bounce ideas off of or share experiences. Like, you know, I've done scrappier indie shoots that Greg hasn't been in that world for a while. Greg has done big studio features that I haven't been in that world. Like sharing each other's, pulling from each person's experience, but also just bouncing ideas and pulling from each person's taste and each person's perspective, was really special and really amazing to, you know, like make a creative choice on set and then not have to sit with it. Like I have somebody else looking at it who can say, oh yeah, that was a good choice. Like I like that choice. And I wasn't there, so I'm not emotionally invested in it. Like I'm just kind of watching it from afar, and vice versa. Like there's something really beautiful about that. And I know that on some TV shows that collaboration exists, where there's multiple DPs, but they're not sequestered into episodes anymore. There's a lot more overlap and there's a lot more collaboration. And yeah, I hope we could see more of that. It's a really beautiful thing, and I would encourage it. Of course, you have to be on the same page. Doesn't work if you're not simpatico, but once you pass that barrier, it can be really, really fruitful and foster like even more creativity and good things. So yeah.
Larry, share. You've talked a lot about Shot Deck, why you started it. How has the process of bringing this amazing thing to life affected your work as a cinematographer, and whether it is like creatively but also community wise? Like I imagine, or I can tell just from hearing you talk about it, that it's the kind of thing that you did for good reasons and then it pays back in ways that you didn't even expect it. So just curious to see how it's affected your journey.
Yeah, I got a funny story about it. It involves Oren, but I'll get to that. But yeah, so I built it because I wanted it to exist, in large part because I just was like, this is this thing that I'm doing sort of really manually. I wish it was like keyworded and scalable, and then it just became a real labor of love. I genuinely love doing it, but it's time, but at my heart, I still like, my biggest thing is still I'm a shooter, and you know, I sometimes direct and stuff. But the funny part about it, because it's like I do get, and I love it. I love people coming up and saying I love Shot Deck and thank you for Shot Deck. But I had lunch with Oren at a place in Santa Monica recently, and I was wearing a Shot Deck hat, and some guys were like, "Hey, you work for Shot Deck?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I created it." And the guy's like, "Oh my God." And I go, "I got some hats or whatever." Me and Oren go to sit down. And then they come over and they're like, "What do you do?" And they're like, "Oh, we have a production company, you know, music videos and commercials and stuff." And I'm like, "Oh, well, this is Oren Sofer. You probably," and they're like, "Oh yeah, we follow you on the gram or whatever." And then they're like, "We should do something." And I'm sitting there going, "I'm a DP too. I'm available." Like they just look straight through me. Like I was like, I'm like, I actually do shoot too. Like it was like just straight through. They're like, "Shot that guy. This is our DP we got here. We could talk to him." And so I went, "Oh, maybe it's crossing over where suddenly they forget I still make movies for a living." So that was like it's happened enough that I'm like going, "Wait a second, I gotta make sure people still know I shoot movies."
You're multi-hyphenate.
You're gonna remind them next year, Larry. You have a little movie coming out. I think people will remember.
But yeah, but it's cool because it's also like, oh, that's nice to hear, and I love more than anything hearing people that it's valuable to listen. I'm prepping a movie right now, and I use it every single moment of every part of the day with the director I'm working with. So yeah. I'm like, this is a reference nobody will know, but it's like Hair Club for Men. It's like, I'm not just the owner, I also am a user. And the guy shows that he used to be bald. That's me with Shot Deck.
No, you created a wonderful thing. Sandra, quick question for you. I know that across your work, film, TV, documentary, you've really spoken about the importance of diversity on and off screen. You're an advocate for it. How does story influence the work that you take on, and how does a DP behind the camera, obviously, and hiring, but how can a DP impact diversity both front and behind?
Wow. Okay. So
right, that was like a 10-part question.
Yeah. I'll try to do it quick. So as far as story goes, I mean, story is absolutely first and foremost to me. I mean, that's why we're here. We're all filmmakers. We're all visual storytellers. But just in the past few years, it has become actually one of my things that I want to do stories that are about diverse voices. So I told this to my agents, and I look all around for whether it's television or movies, stories that because I think it's really important to me as a filmmaker to work on any of these, projects that feature kind of underrepresented voices. But when I say story, yes, I'll work on a story that's from a particular group, but a lot of the things that I do are universal stories, because I think the most important thing that we have to do in the media right now is tell universal stories just with different faces, because we all experience love and loneliness and all of that. And I think we can all connect with each other. We don't all have to look like, one singular face, right? So that's really important to me in terms of the stories that I be part of. And then it's really important to me in terms of representation behind the camera. Because then I think in your question, right, it's like, how does it affect what's on screen? Is that kind of where you were asking? Yeah. And I think it comes down to comfort. Like on the L Word, Generation Q, which is a television show, was the Legacy, when the Legacy show came out. So on the L Word, Generation Q, the showrunners, it was really important to the showrunners that everybody behind the camera, that we all try to hire as diverse as possible from all different walks of life. We wanted it to basically, our behind the camera look like the world. So, it didn't matter. We wanted it to be as whoa.
There's a lighting cue in here. I'm borrowing this meeting room and the lights. Yeah. Anyway, that was dramatic. Thank you.
But what was interesting is when we would have directors or actors, come on the set, they would see the crew, and the crew would be like all walks of life, different people. And there was like a comfort because it felt like a family, right? It didn't, when you came on set, everybody didn't look like one singular person. It looked like, the world. And so I think is the most why, besides, there's so many of us in filmmaking, right? There's, filmmakers from all over the world from many different races and genders and everything. And we all have a voice, right? And so we have to give the ability to give that voice, but then also it creates a comfort level, which then affects the actors and all of the workers. And I think you kind of just, as an audience, you may not, there's just like a subconscious thing. You'll feel the love. So that's
thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our last 15 minutes, and these are going to be questions from the audience. I encourage you all to it's a challenging part of the night because all these questions are so thoughtful, and you could probably answer these each in like an hour because they're deep. But I'll encourage you to just keep it short so that we can get as many as we can. I'm going to ask them quick too. You all talked a lot about storyboards, but very little about camera movement. Any tips, resources, or like quick little cheats for how to get better figuring out where and how to move the camera?
Watch Steven Spielberg's entire filmography, and you'll learn how to move the camera.
Good answer.
And watch it with the sound off. Just look at the images and look at the movement and the editing. It's what Larry was saying before. That's the best way to study.
Spielberg sound off. Anything else? I'm not a DP, but someone in film school recommended this DVD set called Hollywood Camera Work. Are any of you familiar with it? No?
That's not the Jean-Claude Van Damme thing, is it?
No. No.
That's
It's
software, right?
it used to be a DVD set, like 6 DVDs, like thick. And I think now you can rent like each episode or each volume, you can stream it for a couple of dollars. It's like relatively inexpensive. It's a little dated because the CG models are like, 15 years old, but it like breaks down shots and movement and different types of coverage that you can do. So I don't know, maybe if you're curious, something to look into. Okay, but these questions are not for me.
Can I just
They're
say
for you.
something else about that?
Yes, please.
I think, like we've talked about also in this panel, is that you've got to think of a reason to move the camera. It has to be about the storytelling and the drama. And so when you are moving the camera, it's why, and you got to think about that. And sometimes it comes from intuition or, something you've planned to heighten emotion at a certain time, or when to not move the camera is also just as important. I just want to throw that all in.
Great. Next one we have, for those of us who did not go to film school, any advice on networking and or getting technical, I guess being on set is one, but yeah, networking or getting technical knowledge that is not film school and watching movies?
For me, what worked was go to live shows and offer to musicians to shoot their music video because they all want it. And, music videos are super creative. They're also, super draining. I don't love music videos personally, but I did do a lot of them because it was a way to help out a band that would help me learn what not to do most of the time, really. So yeah, musicians are a good kind of resource for that because they're poor and they need content.
I agree with that as far as the music video thing. I mean, my career started probably 20 years earlier than you, Karina, but I mean, that was before the internet, and that was when you literally had to pound the pavement and hit the phones. So I would make phone calls and go to production companies, knock on the door and go in and ask for a meeting, and with my reel on VHS or 3/4 inch. And that's how I started working. And that was for many years until the commercial thing started. So Karina's right. Like, I think all of you have done music videos. Eventually you'll find someone who needs a music video. I mean, I was lucky in the 90s, late 80s, when it was kind of the heyday in MTV.
Yeah.
Before the labels and et cetera caught on. Because we could do whatever we wanted, and it's a little more involved now with the big budget things and the labels. But back then you could get away with murder and try be very experimental. But I think even today you could be really experimental if you were able to get the right project.
Any things that newer DPs should avoid? Something that you've noticed that DPs who are getting into the business that do constantly that you're like, maybe think about that twice.
I can jump in again. I think it's funny because this is maybe contradictory to everything that a lot of us have been saying already, which is like study films and look to the past and all that. But I think there's also a risk for younger DPs to constantly be imitating like something trendy or a certain look or doing something just because you see other people doing it. Like, I do think that it's more important, even though studying other cinematography and other cinematographers' work is helpful to build your own. In addition to that, it is still like important to do the things that you're interested in and that you're attracted to, and not feel like you have to chase trends or something like that. And it can be very tempting to do that because on Instagram the algorithm decides what to show us, and it shows us trends. So yeah, I think that can be very tempting, but I think it's tricky because if you fall short of accomplishing like, oh, I haven't managed to achieve that or do that look, then you might be extra hard on yourself as opposed to focusing on finding your own voice as an artist. So yeah,
that's nice. When DPs work a lot and often without a lot of breaks, do you all have any tips for making sure that you're in a good place mental health wise and health wise. Any tips for just DPs who are working a lot and just need a little bit of self-care?
Try to take time off. It's like, it's hard. Sometimes you're in a rhythm of like just taking everything because you feel like you'll never get another chance. Try not to go back to back as much as I did when I was younger. I respect sleep way more than I used to. It's like, I felt like work smarter, not hard, like not whatever that expression is. Like, I just think I was like, I almost felt like I had to punish myself to feel like I was working hard enough for it to be good, or that felt like I really gave it everything. And I could still give it everything, but respect my like health a little bit more. That's only come in the last 5 years. So it took me a while.
What about tips for lighting? How do you become a master lighting person? You can answer in 20 seconds.
Can I jump in?
Of course.
I'm going to say, when you have ideas, is test them. Like, even on a small scale, use your pre-production to test your ideas, because you don't want to turn up on set with some complicated idea that is not working. And I try and never be in that position. So I'd say using your pre-production and testing is really important.
I agree.
Can I say something
please.
too? Watch light. I mean, look at lights through the window. A street light, anything that, just watch how light works. And you'll discover so many things that way.
Is there anything that each of you has not shot that you are just like dying to shoot? And it could be, a type of movie, a genre that you haven't gotten to work in, but it can also be like a chase scene on jet skis, or like a hot dog eating competition, or just anything that you're just like, I would love to do this before I die.
Mafia, anything with the mafia. I guess 70s and backwards, or even 80s. I'll do 80s backwards. Anything with mafia would be my dream.
Just watch your inbox tomorrow is going to have 700 mafia scripts.
Good.
Oren?
Musical. Yeah, like Chicago style cabaret, like something a little edgy, but still like classic, with staged choreography and all of that, but with a little grit, something like that. I feel like I'm soliciting a specific project out there, but I'm not. But yeah, I love musicals. I've always loved musicals. So yeah, that's one that's on the list for sure. One day.
Sandra?
Oh my God, Oren stole my answer. It's musicals.
I'm so sorry.
I love musicals.
You can co-DP all the musicals.
We can do it. We can do it together. Two heads.
Perfect.
Yeah, great. Musical.
Larry Sher?
Sports film, like a great sports film, like Hoosiers, or
any particular sport.
It could. I mean, I feel like there's never been a great basketball movie, a college basketball movie, but I don't know.
Controversial opinion. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, will you name it? Who? I don't know. It's not Blue Chips.
Larry Fong.
I've always been interested in, space travel and outer space and other planets and stuff, but there's been so many good movies on that in the last few years, at least one a year. So I don't know if I can top any of that, but it seemed like that'd be a fun thing.
Mandy?
I would love to shoot a cool action movie like Bond. That's like been my dream. It's never popped up, but in my experience or opportunity. So something like that I would love to do.
I see that in your
I hope
future.
you get to do it soon. I can't wait to see it. Okay, and very last one piece of film or TV that you've seen recently that has really inspired you and you feel like other people listening should watch. I'll just go reverse order. Mandy?
You know what? The thing that I said to someone the other day, actually, that a show that really I felt like was breaking new ground was the first series of Euphoria. And before that, I hadn't, like, that kind of, to me, was something really new and different, and I really appreciate it. So it's not new, but that's the thing that I felt like it was groundbreaking.
It was, yeah. Larry Fong?
I just saw The Killer by David Fincher, and I can't get out of my head. but I haven't processed it all exactly why, but it's in my head badly.
I wait to see it. Larry, sure.
Yeah, that's a great question.
We can come
I
back
mean,
to Vegeta.
yeah, I know. I mean, the best thing I've watched has nothing. It's like the David Beckham Netflix documentary. I loved it.
That's amazing. I haven't seen it, but now I will. Sandra?
This is not so new, but it was it was nominated for Foreign Film Academy with The Quiet Girl. So beautiful, and also, I mean, low budget. I think it was under a million, 2 million. And every frame is just, oh, it got me in the gut. I still can't stop thinking about it, and it's been already like a year. So, The Quiet Girl,
Beautiful.
out of Ireland.
Karina?
I loved Barbie, and I hated Barbies growing up, and I hated everything related to Barbie. But the movie I thought was like sheer genius. So if you haven't seen it because you think you don't like Barbie, I suggest you go see it because it's amazing.
Mandy worked on Barbie, correct?
Yes, I did the additional photography and the DI for
Nice.
Rodrigo. Yeah,
Well
that
done.
was fun.
I loved it.
Oren, we'll end with you.
Yeah, I love The Quiet Girl. Great shout, Sandra. It's such a beautiful film. Yeah, for the one that I would say is Anatomy of a Fall. Palme d'Or winner this year, and it's in theaters now. And yeah, it blew me away. So check it out.
Well, just want to say on behalf of everyone watching, thank you, Six, so much for making time for us and sharing a little bit of your knowledge. I know that the 300 people who showed up today, and then the thousands that will see it after. By the way, we've been getting a lot of streams on the Dolby site. I think our last panel has like 90,000 views or something like that. So just know that your time is going to be appreciated by so many people. So cannot thank you enough. Mandy, Larry, Sandra, Karina, Oren, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks once again to Carlos for organizing and moderating that incredible conversation, and to Mandy, Larry, Lawrence, Oren, Sandra, and Karina for participating. If you enjoyed this program, please stay tuned. We will be bringing you more of the anti-gravity satellite sessions in the coming weeks. But if you'd like to tune in live and contribute some questions of your own, be sure to follow Anti-Gravity Academy online. You can find that link in our show notes. And if you'd like even more conversations with artists and filmmakers about how they use technology to tell their stories, please be sure you are subscribed to us, the Dolby Institute Podcast. You can find links to our show on all the major podcasting platforms, including the video version on YouTube, in our show notes. Or you can simply search for Dolby wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're curious to know more about the Dolby Institute, head on over to dolbyinstitute.com. There you will find information about all of our programs. You can access the entire library of episodes of this podcast, and you can sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, thank you again for joining us. This is the Dolby Institute Podcast. I'm your host, Glenn Kaiser. Our producer and editor is Michael Coleman. Our executive producers are Amanda Schneider and Jack Ferry, with additional editing by Matt Nixon. Thanks for joining us.